Welcome to The Explainer. So, in this one, we are tackling something absolutely fundamental. What do you do when it feels like your own brain, your own head, is working against you? We're not just going to talk about it. We're going to walk through a really practical, actionable framework for how to navigate those internal storms and, just how to keep existing. And it all starts with this simple, powerful idea. When you're lost in all the noise and chaos, you come back to this one fact. You are here. You are perceiving this. And that right there, that's the proof of your existence. And it's the one piece of solid ground we can stand on before we do anything else. And let's be super clear about the goal here. This is not some abstract philosophy. This is a toolkit. Think of it like a user manual for that incredibly complex piece of hardware that is your brain, designed specifically for those moments when it all just feels like too much. Which brings us to the absolute core concept of this entire framework, and it's a critical distinction to make. You are not your brain. The storm that you feel, that's happening to you, but it is not the sum total of who you are. Okay, think of it like this. You are the operator, that's your consciousness, your real self, the one giving the commands. And then there's the hardware, your brain, your biology, the machine that's supposed to be executing those commands. So here's the crucial point. When your intent doesn't match your output, it is not a character flaw. It's a hardware misalignment. It's biology, it's not some kind of moral failing. So if it's a hardware issue, how do we, check the diagnostics? How do we go from being totally lost inside a feeling to observing it like it's objective data? Well, that's where the first tool in our kit comes in. This is the sanding scale. I know, it's a mouthful, but basically, it's a tool made to quantify that internal distress, that feeling of gritty thinking. And you know what's amazing? Just the act of putting a number on the feeling immediately starts to externalize it. It shifts you from being in the storm to being an observer of the storm's data. Now look at how this scale maps those subjective feelings to real biological hardware events. A 4.0, that's the yellow zone. It isn't just feeling irritable. That feeling corresponds to rising cortisol in your body. Now when you hit a 6.0 in the orange zone, your judgment is biologically impaired. Why? Because your sympathetic nervous system is taking over. And at an 8.0 or higher, your prefrontal cortex itself, the thinking part of your brain, is compromised. The takeaway here is huge. This is not a choice you're making. This is a hardware event. So once we can actually measure the storm, we can start to navigate it. Instead of just trying to endure the chaos, we can actually deploy specific, targeted protocols designed for different levels of that intensity. And this framework gives us two sets of tools. You've got your personal protocols, which are actions you can take for yourself to manage your own state. And then you have helper protocols, which is a clear guide for a trusted person on how to support you effectively when you can't. So, what do you do at a 4.0 or above when you're in that yellow zone? Okay, at this point, self-management is still on the table. The goal is simple. You have to break the feedback loop. You can do this physically. Move your body, change rooms. You can do it with sound. Blast some high BPM music to overwhelm the thought spiral. And this is so important. You do it verbally. You say the number out loud. I am at a 4. You externalize it.
But at a 6.0, the orange zone, the rules change completely. Your judgment is now biologically impaired, so the priority shifts from trying to solve the problem to just stabilizing. First thing, you contact someone, not for them to fix it, just for their presence. Second, you focus on your breathing, long, slow exhales. Third, ground yourself physically. And the most important rule of all, you make no decisions. Anything that feels urgent, you postpone it, period.
And what if you're the helper? Your role is not therapist, it is environmental manager. Your one and only job is to make the environment safer and calmer. Don't argue with their feelings, don't try to solve anything. Just reduce the sensory input. And you can anchor their breathing by just doing it with them. Your calm presence is the most powerful tool you have. So, you've made it through the storm. The sanding level drops. But often, that's exactly when a second and maybe even more insidious challenge pops up, the high cost of shame. This is all about the aftermath. You got through it. You can think clearly again. But now what? So often that same hardware kicks into a new mode. It wants to punish you for what just happened. This is when shame arrives. This framework reframes shame in such a brilliant way. It's not a moral verdict on who you are. It's a bug in the system. It's non-productive computational overhead. Think of it as a useless background process that just replays failure data over and over again without offering any new solutions. It just drains your energy. And to understand the true cost of this bug, we just need one more concept: bandwidth. It's simple, really. Your ability to think, to focus, to function, it's a finite resource. It's your total cognitive processing capacity at any given moment. And this simple equation right here shows the cost. Your effective bandwidth, your ability to actually get things done, is whatever you start with, minus the energy it takes to productively analyze what happened, minus the energy that's just being eaten by shame. Look at the formula. Shame is a direct subtraction from your ability to operate. It is a pure, unadulterated cost. So, if we're looking at this like an engineer trying to optimize a system, what is the optimal value for shame? It's 0. It is a process that consumes your most valuable resource, your bandwidth, while providing absolutely no benefit for improving the system. It needs to be eliminated. So, if the goal is to eliminate that overhead, we need a new process, right? And this final section gives us just that: a sustainable model for turning failure into improvement, and for beginning what's called the upward spiral. And this is the flush protocol. It's a 4-step process for turning those painful events into useful data. First, you isolate the specific event. Then, you strip away the emotion, separating what you did from what your overwhelmed hardware did. Then, you archive the lesson as data, not as guilt. And finally, you flush the rest. That emotional residue, it serves no further purpose. Let it go. Now, this is so critical to understand. This isn't a one-time fix. As the source material puts it so perfectly, recovery is not a line, it is a spiral. You will pass over the same ground again. You will face familiar storms. But that is not failure. It's an opportunity to face that same old storm with new and much better equipment. So how do you measure progress on this spiral? Well, it's not that the storms just disappear. It's that your skills get better, you recover faster, you see the storm coming from further away. Instead of just gritting your teeth and enduring, you actually reach for your toolkit. These are the real metrics of progress. And the engine that drives this whole upward spiral is the principle of Kaizen, just continuous small improvements. The goal is not some huge, dramatic breakthrough. No, the goal is just to make today 1% more navigable. That's it. That is the entire game. And that leaves us with this one final question. This isn't about solving everything all at once. It's about taking one small, actionable step. So, looking at all of these tools, what is one thing that can make your world just 1% more navigable, starting today?